Okay guys, this is the first video for our try at Flip Classroom stuff, so hopefully that you guys will not be too bored with listening to these online. Hopefully you guys will get a lot out of these, and we'll be able to use some class time a little bit more productive and do some good things and have a little bit of fun in class. So we will get started with this. Excuse me if you hear a baby crying or shuffling some notes and stuff like that. Just trying to keep my mindset straight as I go through some of this information. But today, what we're going to get rolling with are basically the concepts of the Constitution, the New Republic, where we kind of go to get to the Constitution and to understand overall the big push for government and exchanges and things like that that is going to happen in this era from 1787 to 1800. So here we go. Rolling down through here. Okay, so the first thing to kind of understand is that the United States is really in an interesting situation. You have a situation where we've just won independence, where we've successfully conquered the British, sent those crazy Brits back from where they came from, sort of, and then started to work towards developing our own government, trying to develop our own ideas on how things should run. And I say develop our own ideas, use what the British kind of use. So we have a lot of things in common with the British, but just kind of running through the setup here, just kind of understanding what things are going on. We have a lot of foreign problems issues. How do we fulfill our requirements with the Treaty of Paris? How do we acknowledge and implement taxation? And how do we preserve power where it should be between the states and the government, the federal government? And really understanding how we have everything sort of set up and put together. So that's going to be a huge situation we're going to talk about. Also, the British has a presence in the West. We talked about this it will be Monday that we talk about this and kind of understand that they still have a presence. It's not just like, oh, the United States wins, bye-bye British, you're out of here, so long, farewell. They're still there. They're still occupying the area. They're still having a strong relationship with Native Americans. And they're still impressing and kind of bullying a lot of the the colonists that are living in the area, especially those that are trying to venture out west and occupy and build new homes. So those are a couple of big things that are going to start popping up and really start developing here. Also, flip side of that, economic weaknesses, reduce foreign trade, inability to tax, interstate disputes. So basically all this has to do with is essentially who has the right to tax, who has the right to develop and print money, all these things. It's all going to come to a head. Now, if you think of the inability to tax, if the United States today, all right, if basically the federal government said we'd had no right to tax, what would we do? Okay, obviously the answer would be, okay, the states would have to supply the federal government. So it'd just be kind of like this, oh, let's be buddy-buddy. And the federal government, the President of the United States is, hey, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, we'll leave Ohio out of this, we'll just say Michigan. Why don't you guys give us some money so we can go to war, and we'll just see how it turns out, right? You guys need to help us out and do your fair share as Americans. How do you think that would work? Okay, probably not well. Overall, because you'll get some states who are like, okay, yeah, we'll chip in. We'll give a little bit. Some states will give more than others. So, I mean, it's very insecure. So all these problems are going to lead to the Annapolis Convention. That Annapolis Convention is going to be kind of a disaster. So it's going to conclude going all the way up to Philadelphia in 1787, where we develop the Constitution. Okay, so that is kind of where things are going. This is what's kind of bringing the whole situation, the whole problem to a head. And really, it's all going to be fixed and solved by 1787. And even then, I say solved by 1787, they're still going to have a whole lot of issues. Okay, Shays' Rebellion. Okay, if it happened today, it would have been put down in less than 5 minutes. Definitely true. So we will actually be talking about the Articles of Confederation, kind of ironing things out and putting things in motion with understanding why we shift from a confederacy to a constitutional form of government. All right. So, I mean, just kind of understanding and putting all these things together. Okay, but the essential question to kind of focus on, Okay, kind of reading this quote to you, not to insult your intelligence, but between 1783 and 1800, the new government of the United States faced the same political, economic, and constitutional issues that troubled the British government's relations with the colonies prior to the Revolution. Okay, so as we go through this stuff, as we kind of plot things out here, and this may be a discussion question that we will maybe talk about, I'm thinking probably Friday, Thursday, around that point. So kind of maybe formulate some ideas about this question. Yes, this is kind of an assignment hidden inside of your flipped classroom lecture. So think about this question. You may want to jot this down if you want to pause, one of the good things about doing the videos. Jot this down or take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. But this question will pop back up. So I'll be prepared to discuss it Thursday or Friday. All right, the meeting in Philadelphia, kind of scrolling down. I can't remember how many of these I put down here. If I skip, yep, just like that. All right, so discussing the Philadelphia meeting, we come in with a huge situation. We come with this huge problem of not knowing how things are going to be figured out, how things are going to be ironed out as far as getting our Constitution up and rolling and pushing forward. So, kind of the breakdown over here, you see the 55 delegates, 12 states being represented, the predominant members, and I mean, one of the big ones that we'll focus on talking in this is Alexander Hamilton. Okay, he is the epitome of the Federalist Party. All right, this is one of the huge political parties that we're going to be talking about moving forward. So you've got the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. That's eventually going to evolve into Federalists versus the Republicans. Okay, and I mean, to kind of understand how political parties evolve over time, Republicans then are not the same as Republicans today. In fact, the Federalists are probably more, well, it's very difficult to understand. And I'll actually show you guys the progression of the political parties. But the Federalists are very much a belief in the elites, a belief in the very knowledgeable, wealthy individuals being in control of government. Whereas Republicans are more like, no, it needs to be the common man. All right, the common man needs to have a say in what the government is doing and how we're going to move forward. So that's just kind of the setup of everything. What they'll do is they're all going to come together. Okay, they're all going to come together and they're all going to be debating, bickering back and forth. If you've not watched the show John Adams, I highly recommend watching it because the debate scene in that show is phenomenal, where they're actually ironing out and trying to figure out what they're going to do with it at this constitutional convention. The biggest thing is getting all these guys to agree on something. It's unbelievable, the things that they bring up and the things they throw at each other through this whole process. They've got to agree on something. And for many of these people, the tensions from the fears of the British being in control or a British type of mindset being established inside the United States is a huge problem. And it's going to hold back a lot of people from willingly jumping into a constitution, jumping into a form of government that's going to be acceptable and useful to the people. So, I mean, and you guys can kind of hopefully kind of see that and understand that through this whole situation. So we'll kind of move on here. Scrolling down, I'll probably skip over it again. There we go. All right. So the biggest issue with this whole understanding of this whole problem is compromise. You've got to get people on board. You've got to get people to commit. What we're going to talk about is the difference between the Virginia and New Jersey plans, okay, because those are the huge things that you guys need to walk away from, is know that the Great Compromise, the Connecticut Compromise, is what's going to have us leading to the Constitution and it all being ratified and everything else. The Three-Fifths Compromise, that's also a huge issue. How do you handle populations that have a lot of slaves? Okay, even though they can't vote, okay, should there still be representation for that population inside each state? We could have that debate, but I mean, it's something that they were all concerned about, and whether or not they would count as a real person or not. Trade and Commerce Clause. Okay, so how will the government regulate? How the government tax? Can the government do those things? All issues, all problems that are going to start to arise through these debates between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists and Republicans. Okay, just kind of breaking things down here. The New Jersey plan. Okay, the biggest thing to kind of take away from that right? I mean, you see the one house legislature compared to the Virginia plan, where two house legislature.